Good evening, and we begin at 5 with Mother's Day weekend coming in hot. Yes, the warm-up is here, and there is a lot more to come, which means we're set to hit the 90s in the valley and well into the 80s along the coast. And while this early dose of summer means, yes, lots of sunshine, it also comes with a few risks. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molto.
And I'm Laurel Porter. Happy Friday. We have full team coverage of the heat for you. Alma McCarty's by the Clackamas River. And Chief Meteorologist Matt Safino has the heat forecast. But let's start with Tim Gordon joining us now from Beaverton. And Tim, there is fun to be had there at the splash pad, but also some real concerns about the temperatures.
Yeah, right, Laurel. You know, it looks pretty great behind me, doesn't it? But yes, both first responders and health officials have some real concerns about the dangers that come with this early season heat. Afternoons in the blazing sun, it's really starting to get tough outside, doing things like mowing the grass. And for Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, that means more emergency calls for heat-related health issues.
Usually don't get to heat strokes of this early in the season, but certainly people get impacted when they spend more time in the sun and they dehydrate faster than they expect.
Public Information Officer Stephen Myers says fire crews take their own advice to help survive the heat.
Get your water in early, drink early in the morning, and be really aware of the output of energy that you're doing in your day-to-day activities.
In Multnomah County, the water bottles are going out to the unsheltered, along with other supplies. And the health department unveiled a new system to track heat vulnerability across the county. Created in response to 2021's deadly heat dome disaster, it's designed to prioritize long-term fixes for the hottest areas, like more shade trees and green spaces, and short-term help for people who need it most.
For us at the county, this helps us plan our outreach leading up to a heat event. It helps us plan even our cooling centers and sheltering operations. It can help us prioritize.
Now to another danger, and that is fire. We've seen it before. It is not too soon to have a spark or controlled fire spread and become an emergency. TVF&R put out a short-term burn ban in effect on Friday for its big coverage area. And if you think it looks too green to burn,
I'll say that yesterday we rolled on a debris pile that got out of control. Quickly ran into other fuels and other timber and slash that have been put on the ground. So this is what we see. As soon as it dries out, we start to see behavior change and people getting out to burn, and it increases calls for us.
So hold off on the burn pit or brush pile burning for now, and hang in there, everybody. And again, hydrate, find shade, take breaks, look out for each other. And if you have a splash pad like this that you can get the kids to, especially the little ones, boy, you're going to be a very popular parent or uncle or whatever in the next couple days. Back to you.
I'll say either that or break out the slip and slide, right, Tim? Thank you so much.
That looks like fun. Chief Meteorologist Matt Safino joins us now. Matt, sounds like the weekend highs backed off just a tiny bit.
We're still going to make the 90s, though, so it's going to be hot. Certainly the hottest weather we've seen so far this year. And look at the reserve golf course right now. Not a cloud in the sky. There are some golfers on the greens, though, which is always good to see. 87 degrees. Low humidity, and we're just beginning to see that east wind kick in. Northeast winds out at the reserve in Washington County, and that's going to be a theme as we go through the next couple of days. Some pretty strong east winds coming at us. 89 in Portland today, so we didn't make 90, but we were right there. Same thing in Troutdale, 89. 87 in Hillsboro and 86 down in McMinnville. So it was cooking. The warmest temperatures in the state right here in the metro area this afternoon. So the heat advisory hasn't begun yet, but it does tomorrow and will continue into Monday because those will be the hottest days, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Although I think Monday is going to cool off a little bit as we get some cloud cover beginning to roll our way. So this is what it looks like for our hot spell. Hottest days will be Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Still in the 80s after that, so we drop a bit, but it's still going to be a warm week ahead, and even the coast will be in the 80s and maybe even 90 as we go into Saturday and Sunday afternoon. Tomorrow, about 92. It's going to be 84 by noontime, so just make plans to keep mom and yourself cool. Guys?
Wow, what a switch from last Mother's Day. I know you'll tell us about that later. Thank you, Matt.
I'll say, speaking of cool enough, let's bring in Alma McCarty now at High Rocks Park on the Clackamas River. Alma, rivers are running really high and very cold, water in the low to mid 50s, I think. So what are you seeing out there this afternoon?
David, Laurel, we are seeing a lot of people here. There's probably going to be more. This is probably just a fraction of who's going to come out this weekend to enjoy the weather, but just something to keep in mind if you do plan to come out today or tomorrow. There are no lifeguards out here, and they won't be here until Memorial Day. Once they start on Memorial Day, then they will go through Labor Day during just the daylight hours, mid-morning until the evening. But just be aware of that. Firefighters and first responders, they're in the area and they do know that there are a lot of folks who are going to be out here on the water, but you're not going to have somebody with eyes on you all the time if you are swimming in the Clackamas River. Another couple of notes, like you mentioned, David, it's going to be cool. It's going to be deeper than it normally is due to the snowmelt. The current is moving very fast. All of that maybe doesn't seem like a big deal if you're trying to beat the heat, but things can quickly turn, especially with the cold water, if you're not careful.
You jump in, they call it cold water shock. Your body has an initial reaction to take a big gasp. So if you jump in and you're underwater and you take that big gasp, usually you can go right to the bottom. Also, you usually have about 3 to 5 minutes of purposeful movement before the body where it starts to get hypothermic. You don't have good control of your arms and legs, and it just makes it more difficult to get out.
Yeah, just some things to be aware of this weekend, because while it can be very, very fun out here, and I've seen a lot of people enjoying their Friday afternoon, things can become very dangerous. And so, like you said, you just have to know the risk factors. So sending it back to you guys in the studio.
Boy, important reminders to really take seriously. Thank you, Alma. Stay with us this weekend for continuing coverage of the heat. You can find the latest forecasts and updates on air on KGW.com and on our social media pages and apps.
Let's get to an update now on other headlines, beginning in Idaho with the so-called Doomsday mom guilty of all charges, including the murders of her 2 children and conspiring to kill her husband's former wife. Lori Vallow Daybell will not face the death penalty, but she could spend life in prison. Her husband, Chad Daybell, is also facing murder charges in a separate trial. The prosecution said Vallow's children, Tylee and JJ, who were 16 and 7 at the time, and Chad Daybell's former wife, Tammy, were all killed because they got in the way of the couple's relationship. Witnesses also testified the couple were deeply involved in a doomsday belief system, and they thought people around them were possessed, including Vallow's children. It is an incredibly sad and complex case, and Dateline will be covering it all this evening. That is tonight at 9, only here on KGW.
Turning to a story we've been following since last week, the death of a 4-year-old boy, allegedly at the hands of his own father. This afternoon, we're learning more about the actions the boy's mother took to get him back in the weeks leading up to his death. Let's bring in Mike Benner, who's following the case. Mike, the boy's mother filed for a restraining order?
Yeah, she did, Laurel. All of it laid out in these court documents right here. We can tell you that a judge ultimately denied that request for a restraining order, and a week later, the little boy was dead. His father accused in that crime, and he was back in court today.
Your Honor, our first matter is page 5, line 1, last of Ware.
In Multnomah County Court Friday, 19-year-old Marquavius Ware pleaded not guilty to killing his 4-year-old son, Jordan. Security in the courtroom was noticeably tight due to what happened in the moments following Ware's initial court appearance last week.
Kill my son. I'm never going to see my baby again.
Ware's supporters got into it with little Jordan's mom and her supporters. The crowd was so amped up that deputies had to intervene, at which point Jordan's mother calmed down and spoke to us.
I need justice for my son.
Janicia Clay says Jordan had been with her for most, if not all, of his life. But in early April, Janicia let Jordan visit his dad. She says Ware refused to return the child to her. Janicia says Ware only let Jordan talk with her on FaceTime.
This is the last time I spoke to my son. I took a FaceTime photo of his face. I had noticed marks. Instantly, I called the police. They told me call non-emergency because it's his father.
Janicia said she did that, but that's not all. Fearing that Ware was going to hurt Jordan even worse, Janicia filed a restraining order in Clackamas County Court on April 26th. Family law attorney Terry Plegman, who's not connected to this case, explained the process.
And if you're trying to file a restraining order, you have a burden of proof. You have to show that there's abuse within the last 180 days by the preponderance of the evidence. And that can be difficult.
And it appears it was in this case. A judge denied Janicia's request for a restraining order. But Plagueman believes it might have played out differently had Janicia filed for custody of Jordan when he was born.
And if you have something that says and delineates this is what custody is, this is what parenting time is, attorneys have an easier time going and enforcing that. And parties can go down and file self-help paperwork to enforce it and send the police over to pick up a child.
Turns out police did get involved, but not until May 3rd, when they were called to Ware's Northeast Portland apartment. Little Jordan had blood in his lungs. He was rushed to the hospital, where he later died. Doctors said Jordan had bruising and swelling all over his body, and the injuries were consistent with child physical abuse, including strangulation.
How? You kill your own kid?
It's a question that haunts Janicia, much like Marquavius Ware's proclamation of innocence in court Friday.
It's worth noting that today's court appearance lasted only a few minutes and all was calm. There were no issues with anyone in the gallery. In the meantime, Marquavius Ware is due back in court the middle of next month. Back to you.
Such a disturbing case, Mike. I really appreciate the update. Thank you. Developing this evening, police are investigating what appears to be a stabbing inside Salem Center Mall. This was on the second floor near the Macy's entrance and food court around 12:30 this afternoon and shut down part of the complex. Police say the victim has life-threatening injuries. Another man they believe to be the perpetrator ran and has not yet been found. Police say no one else was injured and there is no ongoing threat to the public. We will update you as we learn more.